We're gonna go ahead and find some space on our mat standing to start with. If you've got any props with you, any blocks, any straps, any pillows, bolsters, anything like that, I will disperse options to use them throughout. You don't have to use them, they're not necessary, but for some of us they are at certain moments. So they're great. They're great assets. So if you've got them, great, use them. If you don't, it's not necessary. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start in a standing mountain pose. Let me just check. If I step over here, can you guys still hear me okay? Jenny, I can see you. Can you give me a thumbs up? You can hear me? Great, okay. All right, you need to go. All right, if I don't pay attention to her, she'll go, but she thinks I wanna play, and it's driving me a little bit crazy. All right, so go ahead and stand in our standing mountain pose, Tadasana. So we're just gonna kind of roll the shoulders back, maybe check in with the shoulder blades, rock into your balls of your feet, into your heels until you can feel the outside edges of your feet kind of suction to the floor, all 10 toes. Hands are open towards the front of our body in Tadasana. And then we're gonna kind of just pull the core into a nice neutral position. If you are like physically in like CrossFit realm or a strength trainer, you physically like to stand at alert just naturally, but we're not going to do that today. We're actually going to just kind of neutralize the core. We're not flexing our abs. We're not squeezing our butt. We're just neutral. So if you think about your hips and your pelvis as a bowl of water, it's not dipping forward. It's not spilling towards the back. It's just kind of neutral. Pelvis is neutral. Chest is open. And we're just going to take a few breaths to kind of check in on our bodies today. It has been a couple of weeks since I've taught a yoga class. I've got my own yoga practice, but I've not even been very faithful at doing that lately, just with life. And so it's really important to kind of check in and just kind of do an assessment, a personal assessment on how you're feeling physically, more importantly, how you're feeling mentally, and maybe what you're wanting to get from this practice today. Most of the time for me, I tell myself it's a physical thing. Oh, I just need to stretch. Oh, my body needs it. But ultimately, 9 times out of 10, I need yoga for the mental practice. Today is no exception. So we're just going to kind of check in, taking a few deep breaths in through the nose and out through the nose, trying to keep that breath in the back of the nasal cavity. So it's not real superficial in the nose. It's not coming out the mouth unless you might be congested. Kind of drawing that breath in warm in your body. And so finally, just as I mentioned a moment ago, setting an intention for your practice today, maybe something that you're trying to achieve in your life right now. Just, I am enough, I am at peace, I am present, I'm strong, something that you want to speak into your own mind, body at this point, so that you may start believing that. And we're gonna come back to it a couple times during the practice. Maybe that's not your style. Maybe you don't really know what your intention statement is. Maybe you just need a word of resolve today. For me, more times than not, it's either peace or it's breathe. I just really need to remind myself to breathe. To just take a deep breath and take it all in. It helps me to be more present. So for me, a lot of times just a word is fine. But just something that you can kind of draw inward to when a pose gets particularly straining, or at the end of a practice when you're wanting to kind of decompress. So take a couple of breaths and really meditate on that word or that intention statement. And then finally, we're going to start rolling our shoulders up and back a little bit. No need to bring them forward because we live in a forward rolling shoulders society. We're constantly humping those shoulders forward. We don't really need to do that. We're going to open up the chest, taking our right arm, your right arm, and bringing it all the way up, lifting your middle finger towards the ceiling, and then sinking your same foot into the floor. So creating that dynamic resistance through the rib cage, opening up the side body, and then switching sides, taking the left side all the way up reaching the middle finger to the ceiling, sinking the left heel into the floor. And then we're going to do that again, but this time when you bring that right arm up, maybe you want to take that wrist and lift it a little bit higher. Notice that that helps your shoulder blade kind of detach a little bit from the rib cage. It feels really good. Kind of like when you first wake up. This is one of my first stretches that I do in the mornings, just to kind of open up that side body a little bit. And then finally, let's get both hands in it now. We're going to bring both hands up, deep breath in, extended mountain pose. Little baby back bend, tiny arch in the back, and then bringing it down. So because it is early where some of you are, really early, we're going to open up the chest a little bit more. Any chest openers, heart openers in the mornings always help to invigorate and to energize. So we're going to take the flat part of our knuckles, both sides. We're going to press them into our sacrum and then just kind of push the hips forward into a nice modified camel pose. So we're opening up the chest. So from the side, I'm sinking my elbows down and I'm pushing the hips forward, opening up that chest, and then release. All right, deep breath in once again. Hands are going to come all the way up, and while you're here, step to the front or the top of your mat. Mine is over here, but yours might be towards the camera. And then we're going to swan dive, taking the hands all the way down, sweeping them towards the floor, dropping our head into forward fold. So the chin is tucked to the chest, eyes are to the knees, crown of the head is towards the floor, and we're going to let our shoulders fall heavy. Now, maybe your hamstrings are tight and your hands don't touch the floor. That's okay. If that's you, you may want to add some weight to that upper body and allow that stretch to become more natural. So grabbing your elbows in your hands, dropping your chin once again to the chest, and just kind of letting that weight pull you towards the floor. Making sure we're breathing in this forward fold, staying here for just a moment. All right, taking a deep breath in, we're going to come up to half lift. The fingers stay towards the floor. If you want to modify this, pressing the hands into the shins for monkey, lifting the chest, long straight back. And then we're going to release back into forward fold. Now our knees are slightly bent here, they're not locked. And so if you want to bend them even more and wrap your arms around your legs, that's another good way to stretch by pulling that chest towards the thighs, pulling the nose a little bit further towards the knees. Waking your hamstrings up. Mine are like, whoa, did you just get out of bed? Because they seriously feel like I just woke up. And then dropping those hands to the floor, lifting up to half lift once more, deep breath in. And then release. All right, lastly here, we're going to take the palms of our hands and turn them up underneath our feet, taking your toes as close to your wrist as possible on both sides for gorilla. Bending the knees just a bit, and our arms are straight. So dropping the shoulders a little bit. We're going to push against those hands and straighten out the legs a little bit, like you're trying to pull your hands upward, out from underneath your feet. And you should feel this across your thoracic spine, across your mid-back, shoulders, your scapular area. You should feel all of that upper back stretching. And then release back into forward fold one last time. Dropping that forehead towards the legs. All right. This time we're going to bend the knees a lot, sinking back into a seated position. Hands come forward in a chair pose, lifting the chest, dropping back into those feet, into those heels. Hands can be outstretched. Hands can be at prayer pose. You can even prop yourself up on your legs if you need some support today. And then we're going to bring it all the way back up, reverse swan dive to extended mountain pose. Bringing those hands down to heart center, into prayer pose. All right, and now we're going to bring our feet together if they weren't already there. And we're going to come down into that chair pose, but we're going to twist. So twisted chair, opening up the chest, seeing if we can bring our thumbs to the heart center once again. If not, that's okay. Just hold that pose where you can. You don't have to have your hands here at heart center. You can always bring your hands across into a half bind if that's more comfortable for you. And then bringing it back to the middle. Hands come all the way up, deep breath in. Exhale as we sweep down into that side twisting chair. One last deep breath in, bringing it back up to the top. And swan dive all the way back down into that forward fold position. Spreading those feet out, taking our hands, opening them up like starfish, bringing them down to the floor, and then we're going to step all the way back into that downward facing dog. So we're pressing the hands away from the body, feet are pressing away from the hands. Our tailbone is lifted all the way up towards the ceiling, so the point of your body in this triangle position is the tailbone. So the tailbone is lifted as high as it can go. I'm so paranoid somebody's going to be waiting in the waiting room and I'm not going to know it. All right, that happened to me the other day, so I just want to make sure. All right, so nice, big downward facing dog. Another point here is to see if you can take your ears and bring them down towards your biceps. So we're actually trying to press the armpits towards the toes. Taking a deep breath in here, see if we can bring the breath into the back body. So opening up the back side of the lungs. Yeah. Well, I can't play any music and they won't be able to hear me. All right, guys, we're going to come forward and drop our knees to the floor. Bring the hands directly underneath the shoulders. If you can have them if you'll go back upstairs, please. Go hang out with Daddy. Peace. Love you. All right, so getting that back a little bit, woke up. We're going to drop the belly button towards the floor. Nice deep breath in, opening that chest up, opening the throat. So that Vishuddha chakra, the opening of the throat, opening of the chest, and then dropping it all the way down. Tailbone curls under, spine curls up into cat. Chin is locked towards the chest. Deep breath in again, opening that up to cow, dropping the belly as low as you can. And bringing it back up once again, rounding that back. And bringing it back down to a neutral spine. So we're going to wag the tail a little bit, taking that hip bone, trying to curl it around towards your shoulder or your elbow. Keeping the spine in alignment in the middle, and then just turning that upper cervical spine and the lumbar spine towards each other like a C. All right, so restoring balance to the body. Make sure you do an equal number on both sides of that. And then we're going to go into our barrel rolls. And luckily, even on the recording, they will only see me. You don't have to worry about yourself being seen on YouTube. So get it. Just get everything you can out of this next pose or this next move. We're going to take the shoulders and the hips and move them in opposite directions like a twisted DNA strand. Your elbows are dropping towards the floor. And the point of this is to get all of the spine into some kind of movement. These are movements that we don't naturally do in our day-to-day life. I mean, you might, I don't know what you do in your day, but I don't. Reverse it when you're ready. Try to reverse, go the other direction. It may take a second. But if we don't get all of the facets of movement in our spine and strengthen the little muscles that go around those bones, then that's why you throw your back out when you're 50 and you're just picking up a sock. Our bodies have to be able to move in all the directions they are able to function in. So this is a great way to make sure that that happens. All right, once you've done a few of those on each side, come back into that cat-cow, deep breath in, opening up that chest and throat, and exhale, locking it in. All right, back to that neutral spine. We're gonna just kind of take it back into a child's pose for just a moment, dropping your hips over your feet, over your heels, and extending those hands out. If you want to do a regular child's pose and bring the hands back towards your legs, you can. If you want to stack your fists for wrists here so that your neck is still in alignment, that's another option. But just breathe, get some water if you need it. Rest here for just a moment. All right, you guys, go ahead and start coming up into a little kneeling push up to child's pose here. Just trying to get some mobility in those shoulders. So just kind of pushing, dropping the hips like you're doing a kneeling plank. but don't let your belly hang over. So don't relax the belly here. For me, it's easy for me to kind of hyperextend there in my lower back. Try to keep it locked in so that when you're ready, you can drop that into a little yogi push-up, just a little half push-up into the child's pose. When you're ready, if you want to come into a high plank and then into downward facing dog and still keeping that same flow, you can even still add a little yogi push-up here, going into that downward dog, or you can stay with the kneeling, half push-up into the child's pose. Let's get just a couple more. You're inhaling, coming forward, exhaling, pushing back. Let's get one more. And we'll hang out here in downward facing dog. Meet me here when you're ready. Pressing those heels down once again, dropping your ears towards the inside of your arms. All right, we're gonna get a little flow going here. So we're gonna come forward to plank, taking a deep breath in, high plank here, or you can come with me at kneeling plank. Chaturanga, halfway down to a crocodile push-up, crocodile pose. And then inhale, we're gonna either come up to upward facing dog or baby cobra. If you need to stay low like this, do it. If you're taking care of a lower back here, and then pressing back into that downward facing dog. The right leg is going to sweep up and back, and then come all the way to your hands, dropping the back knee into a kneeling lunge, lifting the hands into crescent lunge, pulling your arms into a nice V, big V here. And then we're going to sweep the hands back down to the floor, toes curl under, push back into downward facing dog, and then come forward once again into that plank. Kneeling plank or high plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale to upward facing dog. Exhale to downward facing dog. The left leg, gonna sweep up towards the ceiling, sweeping that leg all the way towards your hands, dropping our back knee into a kneeling lunge, coming up to crescent lunge, taking your time. If I'm going too fast or if I'm going too slow, you have now seen the entire flow in its entirety. So you'll be able to jump in and catch up if you need to. So coming back into our downward facing dog. Inhale to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale to down dog. Right leg's gonna sweep back up towards the hands. This time, you have an option, dropping that back knee to a kneeling lunge once again, or you can be into balancing crescent lunge. Sweeping those hands down. They can hear you. Push back into downward facing dog. Coming forward to plank. Inhale, exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Back to that downward facing dog. Left leg this time is going to sweep up. Coming forward, kneeling or balancing crescent lunge. Sweeping it back down and come back into your downward facing dog. Let's go into that plank one last time. Coming forward to plank. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Hang out in downward facing dog, or you can drop down into child's pose here. Just take a moment. Child's pose, we're resting out, or if you want to have an active recovery here, we're staying in our downward facing dog, your choice. Making sure that breath is full, lifting the back body to get a full breath if you need to. All right, you guys, join me back at downward facing dog if you're not there already. Taking the right leg, sweeping it up once again, just like before. Really try to stack those hips, pressing that bottom heel towards the floor, top heel comes up, and we're stacking those hips one on top of the other. Maybe rotating that ankle, bending the knees, listening to that snap, crackle, and pop that might be happening, or it could just be me. And then we're going to sweep that leg all the way towards those hands, in between the hands. And then we're going to drop that back knee down. So we're in a low lunge here. And then we're going to just bring that left hand towards the inside of the right foot and rotate up and back. So we're opening up the side body, using that shoulder to pull around a little bit. If this is uncomfortable for you or you're feeling like you want to go further, we're taking it into a half bind. Bring that hand behind us. And then bring that hand all the way back up and twisting around to the front. So we're going to lift the back foot, drop the back heel first, and then press back into our downward facing dog. This time the left leg is going to come up behind us, stacking over the opposite hip, pressing that right foot into the floor, rotating that ankle, bending the knee a bit, getting that range of motion going in those joints. Feels good. And then sweeping that foot forward in between the hands, dropping the back knee, bringing that hand close to the inside of our foot, and opening it up. So I did walking lunges recently, and I could feel it in my knees. Like I feel like there's like a bruise in my knees. Very, very tender there. All right, binding it, half bind if you need to, opening that chest up a little more just to get a little bit more of a twist. And bringing that hand all the way up, rotating it around. Toes curl under, push back to downward facing dog. And let's drop to the knees, coming into child's pose just for a moment. Resting it out, rounding your back out, giving your body just a tiny little break before we move on to some warrior poses. All right, guys, go ahead and spread out your fingers and extend those arms if they're not there yet. And we're going to come up into our knees, pressing the toes into the floor, lift the hips up to downward facing dog. Taking a moment to remind yourself of your intention today, or perhaps your word of resolve. Typically, I find myself kind of wandering. My brain likes to wander off the mat, maybe thinking of whatever it is that's a calling for my attention in my mind. But for this next little bit, I want you guys to just remind yourself you're here on the mat. That's where you want to stay present. Those things will be waiting for you when you're done. You don't have to worry about that. You can worry about those later. But for now, let's just think about what's going to happen with our body over these next few poses. So we're going to take our right leg. We're going to extend it up once again, three-legged dog, sweeping that leg all the way forward towards the hands, but this time anchoring that back foot. And from here, let's go ahead and drop the hips towards the floor before we stand up into our warrior one so that you feel really grounded here. So my back foot is angled towards the front, maybe to the side a little bit, but mostly to the front. And both hips are facing the front foot as well. So think about your hips being like your parking lights. Your headlights and your parking lights are always headed the same direction. So make sure everything is squared up towards the front of the body. And we're opening up into warrior one. You have options here. You can bring your hands together. You can bring it into a warrior one finger position here if you want. You don't have to have your hands up at all. You can actually bring them here. Whatever is feeling good to you today, put your hands there. Breathing as we sink into that pose, covering up that big toe with that right leg, but sinking into that 90-degree bend with the front leg. Strong base like a warrior. Taking a deep breath in, we're going to open up to warrior two. Adjust your feet if needed. Opening up that side body. So now you're between two panes of glass. I think somebody got kicked off, my bad. So you're between two panes of glass and you're flat from front to back. And we're still bending that front leg, okay? So still secure in that base. And then we're going to reach forward with that hand, opening up the palm, lifting up to a nice extended warrior or reverse warrior. So we want to go back to what we did at the very beginning of the class where we opened up the ribs. We lifted that shoulder blade off of the rib cage, lifting that hand towards the ceiling. Deep breaths here, sinking into that pose, activating Mula Bandha. So really activating that root lock in the base of the pelvic floor. for strength and stability. Taking it back to warrior two. There may or may not be some muscular tension building in that front leg. Maybe a little Elvis shake. Jenny and Whitley and I, we live in the Memphis area, so we're all about the Elvis shake. All right, you guys, go ahead and straighten out that front leg. Ooh, praise the Lord. And then we're gonna shift our hips to the back and take it down into a nice, clean triangle pose. Sorry, when Hallie got kicked out. Here we go. All right. Good. So that front leg should be feeling that tension in the back of that leg and hamstring. So we're pressing the top of the hand into the inner thigh or the inner calf, or perhaps this is where you've got a block that you want to place your hand on so that you've got a little more length in your arm. So if that's you, the block is here and you're opening it up here so that you're not having to compensate by bending that shoulder forward. You're able to really lift. Probably help if I had this light out with it. Take a deep breath in here, you guys, and see if you can take your bottom hand just a little further and keep the left shoulder up and open, big open triangle pose. Hello, hamstrings. Where have you been? All right, y'all. We're going to bend that front knee and rotate down, windmill those arms down to the floor. Turn that back heel up. Press back into your downward facing dog. Sinking the chest towards the legs. All right, we're going to take that opposite leg. So the left leg this time, we're going to bring it up and back into that three-legged dog. We're going to sweep it forward, plant that foot. Back heel is pressing to the floor. Go ahead and take your butt and drop it down before you stand so that you're already grounded. You're already stable in that pose. Remember, once again, the entire body is squared up to the front, belly button included. Covering up that big toe a little bit with your front knee. You don't have to cover up entirely, but that's the depth we're going for here with that front leg. A nice, firm 90-degree angle so that those muscles start to activate. They start to ignite. They start to warm, and they're going to start working for you. That's what you want. I like to tell people in my live classes when we're doing squats or we're doing some kind of lunges or whatever, that warmth, that burning you're feeling is not your body protesting. It's your body like, yeah, woo, it's cheering you on. So do not be confused. It is not telling you to stop. So we're going to open up the body into our side stance here, into a nice warrior two. Pulling the shoulder blades together in the back, like you're squeezing your shoulder blades together to crack an egg, for example. And we're opening it up here, still lengthening through that back leg, bending in the front. All right, taking that hand, flipping it up and reaching and lifting to reverse warrior. Still sinking in that front leg. This is where it starts to really burn. Lifting up on that root line. Activating the pelvic floor. Pulling up so that you can stabilize your base. And then bringing it back into that warrior two position. One or two more breaths here. Embrace the burn, you guys. Embrace the shake. Straightening out that front leg, sweet relief. Hips push to the back, hinging forward at the waist into our triangle pose. Opening that top shoulder up, looking up at that hand, pressing this hand into the leg. You can also prop yourself on your shin if you need that, or hand on a block, which would be better. Whatever you got to do to get that pose open and flat from front to back. If you can, take a deep breath. We're going to sink a little further. Deep breath in. One more time, you guys. Bending that front leg. Heel turns up. Rotating towards the floor. Push back into downward dog. Shake it out. Walk those legs out. Embracing that strength we just built in those legs. All right. So sinking into that downward facing dog, bending your knees and either walk or you can jump, float, skip, whatever you got to do to your hands. Bring it up, deep breath in, reverse swan dive. Exhale to Tadasana. So back where we started at our standing mountain pose. We're going to go into some balance poses. Some of my favorite things about yoga, because we as women typically balance quite a few things, and I think some people misunderstand balance in life for everything getting equal amounts of attention so that it's balanced, but that's not the case. I feel like there are things that deserve more of our attention, so it doesn't mean necessarily balanced as in equal, but balanced as in prioritized. So we're going to go into tree, which is our basic easy thing to start with. We're going to put all of our weight into our right leg. Left leg is going to either be still on the floor, attached to the floor like a root of a tree, or it's going to be on your calf. We're going to go anywhere but this little knob that's a knee, that little knee knob there. It only takes about 8 pounds of pressure to completely blow out your meniscus or your ACL. So we're going to make sure we don't put pressure there, okay? So we're going to bring, what's that sound? It must be my new dishwasher. I haven't quite learned all the sounds yet. All right, so we're going to bring the foot wherever you'd like it to go, from floor to the inner thigh. And then bringing our hands into heart center on a Hatha Mudra. So we've got our nice open chest here. Shoulders are pulled back. Your knee is mostly out here. So if you feel it kind of coming to the front, maybe open it up a little bit. If you're not finding a balance on your leg, or maybe your pants are too slick or you're wearing shorts or whatever, you can always cross that leg in the front, okay? And have your tree pose there if that's a little more comfortable for you. And then when you're ready, we're going to take a deep breath in and we're going to open those hands up all the way up towards the ceiling, lifting the chest. Feels good. Noting that it's okay if our body moves a little bit. It's okay if we wobble, if we fall over a little bit and have to reset. Totally fine. That's normal. Trees blow in the breeze as well. Great job. I see you. All right. So we're going to take those hands and we're going to bring them down underneath the hamstring on that top leg. And then we're just going to kind of find a range of motion with our leg here. So we're bending into the standing leg. So we're bending and kind of lower to the floor, extending, finding that range of motion. And once you have found it, we're going to hold that leg out there. Standing staff pose. We're going to leave the leg out, open the hands up. If you need to lower that leg, it's fine. But without touching the floor, we're going to sweep back into a warrior three. So warrior three, hands are lifted, straight out, pushing the weight out through your back heel, bending that standing leg. And finally, from warrior three, we're going to just open up into a star pose. So just moving your body into a big X, like you're a dead bug on a windshield, nice and flat from front to back. Big breaths here. Remember that that leg could be as low as you want it to be. It could even touch the floor if you need a kickstand here. And bring it back into our standing pose. All right, so we're going to try it all again on the opposite side. Second verse, same as the first. Left leg is bent, pressing into that floor. Right leg finds somewhere to balance on the left leg. Remember, we are not symmetrical beings. You may find yourself killing it in the balance on one leg and all over the place on the other leg. Totally normal. Find where you're balanced here. Find where it needs to be. And then reset, finding a focal point about 6 feet away from you on the floor, or maybe on your screen where you can't, where something that's not moving, for example, and finding that focal point, stilling your focus will also still your body. So making everything still. I recognize with my accent, it may sound like I'm saying still, but that's not it. It's still, S-T-I-L-L. And then extending it all the way up. Down here in the South, some words that are supposed to have one syllable tend to have two. Just mind your business, okay? Mind your business. All right, so opening that chest up into tree pose. And now we're gonna sweep down, grabbing that leg behind those hamstrings, extending that standing staff pose, just finding that range of motion. You're gonna feel a nice pull in your hamstrings here. This is also for your hip flexors, but just pay attention. Make sure you're not pulling too hard. But once you find that range of motion, holding that leg out, and that's immediately when you'll start to feel the hip flexor activate. Leaning that weight back so that you can push that foot forward. And then without dropping the foot, I'm gonna turn to the side so I don't kick my kitchen table. We're gonna bring it into warrior three. Flat core here, pressing into that leg, opening up the chest. I'm gonna turn, I'm gonna be towards the back of the camera, but you guys go ahead and just open up where you are into star pose. Opening it up, flat from front to back in the big letter X. And bringing it back down. All right, shaking out that balance just a bit. We're gonna do one more balance pose. We're a little bit balance heavy today. My mental, where I am mentally needs it, so I just assume that means somebody else might. So we're gonna do one more balance pose. It's called Bird of Paradise. If you have a strap and you wanna try this with a strap, this is a great time to use one. If you don't have a strap, we'll totally make it work. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with the left leg. The left leg is gonna come all the way up into the crease of your right leg. So I'm holding on to it. It doesn't have to stay there by itself. If you've got a strap, you're gonna strap that ankle with the strap, and you're gonna pull it towards your foot side, okay? And then eventually we'll reach back behind us and hold it. So this hand will be holding the strap, okay? If you don't have a strap, I'm still holding on to my foot. I'm gonna bend at the hips, and I'm gonna begin to come forward into that bird of paradise. So it helps me to come forward first. Now my body is at a 90-degree angle in the hips. And if you'd like to come further, we come further. Touching the floor or not touching the floor, touching a block or not touching a block. You're gonna feel this in your outer hip. Maybe a half a dozen other places. Play around with it. If you're using a strap, play around with it. Find your balance, find your range of motion. And then when you're ready, coming back up. All right. So the good news is that that's my good hip. So I'm really apprehensive about trying this on the other side. So you guys just do your own thing. When we come up with our right leg, we're bringing that foot into that hip flexor area, into that crease of the hip. With your strap, if you've got a strap, your strap is around your ankle, and the strap is being held onto by your opposite hand. Okay, so coming around behind you and grabbing that strap. And then when you're ready, we're opening up the chest. We're coming halfway down first. Oh, Lord have mercy in that hand. Oh my gosh. And breathing. And breathing. Find your intention statement. Word of resolve. All the things. Coming down into that bird of paradise. If you're feeling areas that are seizing up, areas of tension, you may want to breathe through those. And when you're ready, coming out of that pose, carefully dropping that leg. Oh man, you guys. Don't know about y'all because I can't really hear you, but that was a struggle for this one over here. So stepping to the front of your mat or the top of your mat, taking a deep breath in, swan dive all the way to the floor, dropping into forward fold, chin comes to the chest, hands open wide, and we're gonna step back into that downward facing dog, pressing into the legs with the armpits. Armpits are pressing towards the knees. Chin is towards the chest, and we're pressing into that long triangle. All right, you guys. So we're going to go ahead and drop to the knees. And we're going to have a seat coming into a seated position here. All right, so a little bit more hip openers. Keeping in mind that that sacral chakra is where we house a lot of emotions, a lot of our tension as females tends to kind of harbor itself in that bundle of nerves and that bundle of energy that our creator put into our hips and pelvic region. So for me, when I know that I need this the most is when I'm particularly emotional and I don't express that. So we're going to put that right foot forward, left foot is going to come on top. And if you'd like to, we're going to walk those knees towards each other into a cow face pose. If you don't feel a cow face pose, if you're not feeling that today, stay in that half lotus right here. So the leg stays on top. Flex the foot towards your knee and keep it up here. I've got some mobility issues with my hips lately. Yay, quarantine. So it actually feels better for me to come here. So we're going to try to put both butt cheeks on the floor and flex our feet to protect our knees and sit up nice and tall. So pressing the hands into the floor, sitting up nice and tall into that seated position. All right, so taking a deep breath in, we're going to take the opposite arm from the leg that's up. So for me, it's my left leg is on top. So my right arm is going to, or your right arm is going to open up, twisting it towards the side. So thinking of this seated balance or seated twist as more of an upward motion with the upper body. So we're lifting up, we're keeping the hips pressed into the floor, and we're opening up that chest into that twist. Side twists are really great for digestion. Anytime you're having digestive issues or intestinal things that are happening, many times some concentrated twisting motions with the upper body are a great way to kind of massage those organs to get things flowing. And then bringing it back into the middle. So from here, the opposite arm, once again, is going to come up and pull towards the middle of the back. So taking your fingers and kind of pressing them into your spinal cord to kind of hold their spot. And then the opposite hand is going to come underneath. Your fingers may touch, they may not. That's okay. If they do touch and you can find a bind here, bind those hands and really stretch those shoulders. If your fingers don't touch, mine can touch, but they won't, there's no attaching themselves to each other. They're just touching. But opening up that chest, really stretching into that shoulder, that tricep here. All right, so we're going to release the bottom hand first. So just let go with your bottom arm. And then the top arm comes around. And then we're going to switch. So take a moment to kind of undo that stretch in those hips. And then bringing that opposite leg in front, walking the top leg across. Maybe my knees will stack today, maybe they won't. Allowing yourself to be wherever you are today in your practice. Maybe just for today, your knees don't want to stack like mine. That's okay, because wherever you are today in your practice, respect that. Know that every day is different. Tomorrow's going to be different than today. Okay. So seated cow face pose. We're opening up that chest, sinking both butt cheeks into the floor, and then we're going to rotate towards that top leg, opening up the chest. Crown of the head is lifting towards the ceiling. And bringing it back to the middle. Same thing. This opposite arm is going to come up and back. Pressing that middle finger into whatever flesh you could find on your spine, and then lifting that opposite hand up. This is my side that I can bind. It feels so good. Relaxing the shoulders so that you can actually get to where you need to go. Deep breaths here. All right, gently drop that bottom hand first. And then the top comes around. Legs extend out in front of us. Shake it out. Ooh, the hips. Some days they're feeling a little bit locked, more locked than normal. All right, so in that seated staff or pike position, we're going to open up the sits bones, allowing that flesh to kind of part, and so you can feel where the sits bones are. But if this is uncomfortable for you, if you feel like you need to put it back, it's okay. I just want you to feel exactly where those two bones are that are going to be pressing into the floor. So lifting the chest really high. We're going to take it down into a seated forward fold. So knees are going to bend here, and then we're going to stretch the chest towards our knees. So pressing the chest down, opening up the heart center here, and allowing that upper body to flatten, not round, into your legs. So with our sinking breath that we're going to practice here, inhale, we're going to lift the chest a little bit like you're filling up a balloon. And on your exhale, we're going to sink just a little bit more. So inhaling, exhale, and sink. Inhaling, just keep that breath going. And you'll find yourself getting lower and lower into that pose. Let's take one more breath, sinking it down. All right, coming right back up into that seated position. Good job, you guys. All right, so we're going to make our way down into a lying down position on our back. So let me make sure this is good. All right, so knees are going to be bent, feet are flat on the floor, hands are down by our heels, or pointed towards our heels. You don't have to touch your heels. We're going to go into our bridge pose. So I like to walk my shoulder blades in towards each other first. And then we're going to squeeze the glutes and lift the hips off the floor. I want you to imagine that you've got a yoga block in between your knees or thighs, and you're squeezing that yoga block with those inner thighs, okay? So lifting towards the ceiling with those hips, squeezing the glutes, and then lowering that bridge back down to the floor. We're going to do it again. So lifting the hips towards the ceiling, this time walking our shoulders together even more so that perhaps you can reach down and grab your hands and bind this bridge pose, squeezing your glutes together, squeezing those inner thighs. This is a dynamic tension here. I want you to also think about drawing your heels towards your hands. So see if you can bring your heels towards your hands in your mind. You're not actually moving them. But pulling as if you're trying to slide your heels back. You feel the difference? You feel that in your hamstrings? And then we're going to slowly release back down to the floor. Bringing those knees into the chest, into our egg pose. We're going to kind of rock the lower back into the floor a little bit. All right, so from here, if you have room on your floor to open up your hands into a big letter T, we're going to just rotate the knees all the way over to one side for a lying down spinal twist, stacking your knees the best you can, and then opening up the chest so that both shoulder blades are on the floor. If you want a little bit more, we're going to turn that head towards the opposite arm. Now maybe extending that top leg out just a little bit using your hand to kind of pull that hip around a little bit and get that glute stretch. All right, releasing that hand, using just your core muscles, We're going to try to come back around into the middle position that we just started out in, and then bending both knees, and then rotate the legs over to the opposite side. All right, if you'd like to extend that leg out just a bit, using that hand for support. All right, activating the core, we're going to bring those legs right back to the middle. Feet don't get caught underneath my table. And bring those knees back in. Hands are underneath those knees, and we're just going to kind of rotate once again, massaging that back into the floor. All right, so winding it down, we've got one more stretch. We're going to bend one knee, lifting that opposite leg, nice straight stretch of the back of the hamstring. We started a few minutes late because I was late running in the other class, so we are going to finish a few minutes late. Just letting you guys know it is 10 o'clock right now, or whatever time it is where you are. It's on an hour right now, so we'll wrap up in just a few minutes. And to activate that IT band, for those of you that are runners or you like to walk outside, this is a great stretch for you to do. We're going to take the hand to the opposite side of that leg and just kind of rotate it about 6 inches, no, not even that, maybe 3 or 4 inches across the body. You'll feel it. You'll feel the stretch. If you want more, you could extend that bottom leg. It's also a great place to use a strap if you want a little extra help here. I love using a strap on any kind of stretches like this because you can use more of a pull rather than me having to reach and hold on. And then bring it back to the middle, switching sides, lifting that opposite leg, stretching the back of that leg, extending that bottom leg if you need it, if you need a little more. Notice the difference between when you point your toes or when you flex your foot. You're going to feel a difference in the stretch. Find which one works for you. I like the deeper stretch that a flexed foot gives me in the front of the leg. I get shin splits real bad, so it's a great stretch for me. And then we're going to IT band stretch. We're going to just pull the leg across the body just a little bit, just enough to feel that muscle, that ligament that runs all the way. Goodness, that runs all the way across the top of that leg. That's nice tendon. Okay, guys, bring it back in, bend those knees. One more little rock of the upper body. And then we're going to extend the legs all the way out to the end of our mat to a corpse position, Shavasana. Shavasana is actually the name of this pose, not of what we're about to do, but we like to call this part of the practice Shavasana because it just makes sense. And so, because we are in corpse position. But if corpse pose is not comfortable for you, lay wherever you can feel comfortable. And just like Tadasana, at the beginning of our class, we started out at palms towards the front, feet are nice and relaxed, hips are neutral. And we're just going to kind of check in once again. We're going to check in from head to toe. So we're going to check in at the top of the head, noticing that forehead, what tension might lie there, and kind of allowing it to relax a little bit. Eyes are closed but relaxed in the eyelids. Shoulders and neck are free of tension. Scanning those arms, relaxing your arms and hands, relaxing your belly and your hips, allowing your hips to kind of rotate outward a little bit here for a relaxed state. Coming down into the knees and even the feet. Feet are relaxed. They're also kind of pointed out a little bit if they're relaxed. Noticing once again in your face, if you're feeling any areas that are kind of squeezing, like if you're squeezing your eyes shut or if you're clenching your jaw, maybe relax your jaw by unclenching your teeth, taking your tongue off the roof of your mouth, and just kind of relaxing there. It's okay if your mouth is open here, nobody can see you, but just allowing that body to kind of sink into the mat as if you're on a warm, sunny beach and you are trying to leave an imprint of yourself in the sand there. You want to just kind of allow your body to sink. So taking a few moments to breathe, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose, and checking in with that intention statement that you declared at the beginning of class. So maybe that word of resolve, you want to kind of come back to that. Reminding yourself how capable you are, how disciplined you are to get on this Zoom today or to watch this YouTube video and to take this time for yourself. That is not something to take lightly. It is really, really challenging to find the discipline to work out from home, more so in my opinion than going to the gym. So give yourself that affirmation that you did that. You may not have wanted to, but you did it anyway. And just remind yourself how truly strong and capable you are. You are absolutely enough. And just take the next few minutes to breathe and reflect on that, to reflect on all of the blessings that we've got, all the things you're thankful for, especially this time of year and in this crazy season of our lives. And just allow yourself to meditate on that while you breathe for the next few moments. And then I'll bring us back. When you hear my little chimes, that's when you know we're going to start rotating into a side lying position or sitting up, whatever feels good to you. So just take this next few minutes to breathe and to relax.
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much, though. That was awesome.
That was fun.
Thanks,
Much
Sarah.
needed for me. All right. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye, you guys.
All right.